Why is Africa suddenly making world powers sweat? Could two nations, Burkina Faso and the Central African Republic, truly be on the brink of reshaping global geopolitics? Traoré, a 35-year-old soldier turned head of state, is rewriting the rules of leadership. Touadéra, a former professor, is methodically dismantling the chains of neocolonialism in his resource-rich nation. Together, they're not just fighting for their countries, they're igniting a movement that's inspiring an entire continent. But to understand the significance of their actions, we need to start with the question that's driving this revolution. Why is sovereignty suddenly the most important word in Africa? Here, we would like to take a moment and thank you for supporting us and being a member of our strong community. Let's get started. Sovereignty might sound like an abstract concept, but for Africa, it's as real and urgent as the air we breathe. It's the difference between owning your destiny and having someone else dictate it. And for too long, Africa has been living on borrowed time and borrowed power. Think about it. Most African countries gained independence in the mid-20th century, but how independent were they? Colonial powers might have left on paper, but their influence lingered in every corner of African life. From economic policies dictated by international lenders to military decisions controlled by foreign allies, the continent's independence often felt more like a change in management than a true liberation. That's where sovereignty comes in. It's not just about kicking out foreign powers, it's about reclaiming control over every aspect of a nation's life. It means deciding who you trade with, how you use your resources, and what kind of future you want to build. For leaders like Traoré and Touadéra, sovereignty isn't just a political buzzword, it's a survival strategy. Traoré, for example, has made it clear that Burkina Faso will no longer rely on French military aid to fight insurgencies. Instead, he's focusing on empowering local militias and forging new alliances that prioritize his country's needs. Touadéra, meanwhile, has taken a stand against the exploitation of CAR's vast mineral wealth. Under his leadership, the government has renegotiated mining contracts to ensure that profits stay within the country, rather than disappearing into the coffers of foreign corporations. Sovereignty in their hands is a weapon, a way to cut through the tangled web of dependency and create a future where Africa calls the shots. But what makes these two leaders uniquely qualified to lead this charge? Africa has seen its fair share of leaders, but few have captured the imagination of their people like Ibrahim Traoré and Faustin Archange Touadéra. What sets them apart isn't just their policies, it's their audacity, their willingness to take risks, and their deep connection to the struggles of ordinary Africans. Take Traoré. At just 35, he's the youngest head of state in the world, but he carries himself with the authority of someone who's spent decades in power. Traoré didn't rise through the ranks of a political party or inherit his position. He seized it in a moment of crisis. Burkina Faso was reeling from a security crisis, with insurgent groups wreaking havoc across the country. The government at the time was seen as ineffective and out of touch. Traoré stepped in, not with promises, but with action. His leadership style is a blend of pragmatism and vision. He doesn't sugarcoat the challenges his country faces, but he also doesn't back down from them. Whether it's cutting ties with France or forging new security partnerships with Russia, every decision Traoré makes is rooted in one principle: putting Burkina Faso first. Touadéra, on the other hand, represents a different kind of strength. As a former professor of mathematics, his approach to leadership is calm, calculated, and methodical. But don't mistake his academic demeanor for passivity. Touadéra has stood firm in the face of immense pressure, from rebel groups trying to destabilize his government to international powers unhappy with his alliances. What makes them truly unique, though, is their ability to inspire. Both leaders have tapped into a deep well of frustration and hope among their people, turning it into a movement. They've shown that leadership isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about making the tough decisions that will benefit your country in the long run. But their boldness doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's a response to decades of exploitation and inequality, particularly in their relationships with Western nations. So why are so many African countries turning away from the West?
the United States and France were working on a security paradigm. They were building bases and providing security, anti-terrorism measures, and an absolute minimum economic investment came.
For decades, the West has framed its relationship with Africa as a partnership. But let's be honest, it was never an equal one. Western nations came to Africa with aid programs, loans, and trade deals, all wrapped in the language of development and progress. But these gifts often came with strings attached, strings that turned into chains. Aid was tied to policy reforms that gutted local industries. Loans came with interest rates so high they created perpetual debt. Trade deals ensured that Africa exported raw materials at bargain prices while importing expensive finished goods. The result? Africa became a continent of wealth that couldn't benefit from its resources.
Good afternoon. I am Malens, and I come from the richest country in the world. It is located in the richest continent in the world, in the west of the richest continent. My country is called Sierra Leone. On the surface, we are blessed with infinite beauty and abundance of flora and fauna, producing the most exquisite harvest of coffee, cocoa, fruits, vegetables, and caoutchouc. You name it, we've got it. We also have diverse wildlife and vast marine resources, and waterfalls and rivers, most beautiful beaches. The land is golden. Besides gold and diamonds, we have about 20 precious minerals, huge petroleum reserves that have been discovered. We have platinum, ilmenite to make titanium, rutile to coat jets, iron ore, tantalite, also known as coltan, used in your mobile phones and computers, bauxite for aluminium production, zinc, chrome ore, copper, coal, phosphates, potassium, salt, lead, granite, asbestos, nickel, zircon, exquisite timber like mahogany and teak. The first sub-Saharan university, prior to that, there was one in the kingdom of Timbuktu, which was the first university in the world, which of course is inhabited by the most beautiful souls. And we have the most beautiful stems in the world. Of course, the West needs Africa's resources most desperately to power airplanes, cell phones, computers, and engines. And the gold and diamonds, of course, a status symbol to determine their powers by their core and to give value to their currencies.
Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. Leaders like Traoré and Touadéra are saying, enough. They're not just rejecting the terms of these partnerships, they're questioning the entire framework. Why should Africa's resources fuel the economies of Europe and North America while its people struggle? Why should decisions about African security, trade, and governance be made in Paris or Washington? This isn't just a rhetorical question, it's a call to action. Traoré has been vocal about ending Burkina Faso's reliance on French military aid, instead turning to countries like Russia for support. Touadéra has taken similar steps, working with China to develop infrastructure projects that prioritize local needs over foreign profits. These shifts aren't just about economics, they're about dignity. By diversifying their partnerships and reclaiming control over their resources, African nations are asserting their right to self-determination. But sovereignty isn't just about economics or politics, it's also about security. And for Burkina Faso and CAR, security is a fight they can't afford to lose. Security is the foundation of sovereignty. Without it, no nation can truly stand on its own. And for countries like Burkina Faso and CAR, security isn't just a challenge, it's a matter of survival. Burkina Faso, for example, has been battling insurgent groups for years. These insurgencies have devastated rural communities, displaced thousands, and destabilized the country. For CAR, the threat comes from rebel groups that control large swaths of territory, undermining the government's authority and creating a climate of fear. For years, both countries relied on Western military aid to address these threats. But there was a problem. That aid often came with strings attached. Western nations dictated how and where the aid could be used, limiting its effectiveness. Traoré and Touadéra decided to take a different approach. They've embraced partnerships with countries like Russia, whose Wagner Group has provided military support tailored to their needs. Critics have been quick to point out the risks of these alliances, but for leaders dealing with immediate threats, the choice is clear. Results matter more than optics. In CAR, rebel-held territories are shrinking, and stability is slowly returning. In Burkina Faso, local militias are being empowered to protect their communities, creating a sense of ownership and resilience. Security isn't just about fighting insurgents. It's about creating an environment where people can live without fear, where farmers can return to their fields, and where children can go to school. And as security improves, it lays the groundwork for something even more transformative: unity. Unity has always been Africa's greatest aspiration and its greatest challenge. From the Pan-African movement of the mid-20th century to the African Union's creation, leaders have long envisioned a continent working together as one. But external pressures and internal divisions have often stood in the way. So, is the tide finally turning?
A united country.
We are a nation building ourselves towards a cohesiveness, and we must do it, albeit the political divides, but it is us, the cultural activists, that will make this happen. And the currency is in the people knowing of the value of cultural diversity.
Traoré and Touadéra seem to think so. Their actions are paving the way for a new kind of unity, one rooted in shared struggles and mutual support. Burkina Faso, Mali, and CAR are forging alliances that go beyond diplomatic gestures. They're forming a bloc of nations determined to solve their problems and reduce their dependence on outside forces. This isn't just about politics. Imagine neighbors banding together during a storm, pooling resources to keep everyone safe. That's what these countries are doing. They're collaborating on security by sharing intelligence and resources, and building joint defense mechanisms that protect the entire region. Economically, they're exploring ways to trade with each other directly, bypassing traditional middlemen that have historically drained wealth out of the continent. What's driving this change? Much of it comes down to leadership. Leaders like Traoré and Touadéra aren't just thinking about their countries, they're thinking about the continent. But as they push for unity, they also face tremendous resistance and obstacles that threaten to derail their vision. Standing up to global powers is no small feat. For Traoré and Touadéra, the fight for sovereignty and unity isn't just a political battle, it's a personal one. Every move they make is scrutinized, every decision questioned, and every success met with pushback from forces determined to maintain the status quo. One of the biggest challenges comes in the form of economic pressure. When Burkina Faso cut ties with France and CAR embraced Russian security forces, both nations faced significant backlash. Western nations have used economic sanctions, reduced aid, and diplomatic isolation as tools to punish them. For countries already grappling with poverty and instability, this can be devastating. Then there's the internal opposition. Not everyone in Burkina Faso or CAR supports these bold moves. Some fear that breaking away from traditional allies will leave their countries isolated and vulnerable. Others question whether new partnerships, particularly with nations like Russia and China, truly represent a better alternative. Traoré and Touadéra also face the ever-present threat of destabilization. Rebel groups, insurgencies, and even covert foreign interference remain persistent dangers. Leaders who challenge powerful nations often find themselves targeted, not just politically, but personally. Assassination attempts, coups, and other forms of political sabotage are real risks. Despite these challenges, both leaders remain resolute. Their ability to persist in the face of such overwhelming odds is a testament to their vision and determination. They know they're not just fighting for their nations, they're fighting for a new way forward for Africa. But what do ordinary Africans think of this revolution? Are they on board with this bold new direction? The answer lies in the streets, villages, and towns across the continent, where a sense of hope and pride is beginning to replace decades of frustration. In Burkina Faso, Traoré has struck a chord with the youth. His speeches, filled with passion and purpose, have inspired young people to believe in their country again. Gone are the days of disillusionment with politics. Today, students, farmers, and shopkeepers alike talk about sovereignty as if it were their mission. In Car, Tuatara's quiet determination has brought a different kind of optimism. Communities that once lived under the shadow of rebel control are beginning to rebuild. Farmers are returning to their fields, children are going back to school, and local leaders are taking charge of their communities. But this isn't just about individual countries. Across Africa, there's a growing sense that what's happening in Burkina Faso and Car is part of a larger story. It's a story about reclaiming dignity, breaking free from exploitation, and creating a future defined by Africans themselves. Of course, not everyone is convinced. Skeptics worry that this movement is too idealistic and that it risks alienating traditional allies without providing clear alternatives. But even among the doubters, there's an undeniable sense that something has changed. For the first time in a long time, Africa feels like it's on the cusp of something big. What makes this movement so powerful is its ability to connect the past, present, and future. It's not just about fixing today's problems, it's about breaking free from the chains of history. Africa's past is one of extraordinary resilience, but also deep exploitation. For centuries, the continent's resources fueled the industrial revolutions of Europe and America, while its people endured the horrors of slavery, colonization, and systemic exploitation. Even after independence, the shadow of this history loomed large, with neo-colonial practices keeping many nations trapped in cycles of poverty and dependency. Breaking free from this past isn't just about rejecting colonialism. It's about creating something entirely new. It's about reclaiming control over resources, rewriting trade rules, and building systems that work for Africans, not outsiders. Traoré and Touadéra understand this deeply. In Burkina Faso, efforts are underway to nationalize key industries and ensure that the wealth generated by the country's resources stays within its borders. In Car, new mining contracts prioritize local labor and reinvestment in infrastructure over foreign profits. But breaking free from the past also means changing the way Africa sees itself. For too long, the narrative has been one of victimhood, of a continent at the mercy of outside forces. Today, leaders and citizens alike are reclaiming their agency. They're telling a new story, one where Africa isn't just a victim of history, but a shaper of its destiny. This shift in mindset has profound implications, not just for Africa, but for its place in the world. For centuries, Africa has been viewed through a narrow lens, as a continent of problems to be solved, resources to be exploited, and markets to be tapped. But what happens when Africa starts rewriting its narrative? The actions of leaders like Traoré and Touadéra are forcing the world to take notice. By prioritizing sovereignty and unity, they're showing that Africa isn't just a passive player, it's a force to be reckoned with. This isn't just about gaining respect, it's about power. When Burkina Faso ends exploitative trade deals, it's not just protecting its economy, it's challenging the global economic order. When Car builds alliances that prioritize its security, it's not just stabilizing its borders, it's asserting its right to self-determination. The ripple effects of these actions are already being felt. Other African nations are watching closely, inspired to follow suit. Meanwhile, global powers are scrambling to adapt to a world where Africa is no longer willing to play by their rules. But this is just the beginning. The real question is, what's next? The journey ahead is uncertain, but one thing is clear. Leaders like Traoré and Touadéra aren't just fighting for today, they're building a foundation for tomorrow. Their immediate priorities are clear. For Traoré, it's about solidifying Burkina Faso's security and ensuring that the country's newfound independence isn't undermined. For Touadéra, it's about continuing to reclaim Car's resources and building the infrastructure needed for long-term growth. But beyond these immediate goals lies a bigger vision, a future where Africa is truly free, united, and prosperous. This vision isn't just about two leaders, it's about a continent rising together. And as this movement grows, it's becoming clear that Africa's story is far from over. It's just beginning. Do you think, under such leaders, Africa will soon change? Can anything stop the change? Let us know in the comment section. Do you think more nations will follow suit? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.